My name is Nick Brule. I'm a senior project manager here at the National Law Enforcement Memorial and Museum. Today we're going to talk about Destination Zero and the process of submitting. We're going to hear from a distinguished panel and hopefully give you some insight as to how to submit, to learn what the committee talks about when we're looking at submissions. Also, you're going to learn from a number of our award winners to hear about what it is that they've done in their agencies and how it is they became Destination Zero finalists. You heard the previous panel by John Matthews discuss what is in our Destination Zero resources. And if we can't get to your questions today through the chat, again, you can go to the Destination Zero website, and in the top right-hand corner, there's contact, and that will lead you to the Destination Zero at nleomf.org email, and you can submit a question that way. In the last panel, we heard how challenging things are and the challenges that our profession is facing. I'm a retired lieutenant from the Metropolitan Police Department here in Washington, D.C. I served 25 years and retired as a lieutenant in charge of our traffic safety unit. I then went and did a brief stint at the Washington National Cathedral as the director of security, and then found a posting for a job here at the Memorial Fund. Being a policeman in Washington, of course, I was completely familiar with the memorial. I also knew that they were planning on opening the National Museum, which is where I am right now. I was able to be hired, and in 2014, I came aboard as the Director of Officer Safety and Wellness, managing our grant programs. One of those was Destination Zero. Destination Zero has grown over the years, but the goal of our panel today is to really encourage those of you who are watching who haven't submitted, or those of you who are watching and need assistance or want to learn more about some of these ideas. As you heard John Matthews mention, we have an alumni association, basically, a group of all of our former winners who are available to assist other agencies at the drop of a hat. We can put you in touch with those people, and you can have a conversation with that chief or that sheriff or the head of that agency to find out how they were able to work through certain things. So Destination Zero is really all about pooling resources. And the great strength of Destination Zero is that these are solutions that are coming from law enforcement. We're saving ourselves. There's so many great ideas. You've heard about a number of them today. You've heard already from a couple of our panelists today, and you're going to hear from in the earlier sessions, and you're going to hear from them again in this panel. But it's critical for everyone to understand that we're only as good as what we get. So if you're not submitting and agencies aren't submitting, we can't share the great ideas we have. And we call some of those ideas nuggets. These are simple things from the use of nuisance card bingo to alleviate the stress in dispatchers. You heard about that. You heard me talk about some basic things that you can do to protect yourself while you're on patrol. There are all kinds of little nuggets that come out of Destination Zero that you don't have to have a program instituted to learn from, but ideas like mentorship, like healthy hire to retire. And that's one of the main goals of Destination Zero, is to not only have law enforcement put our ideas together for reducing fatalities and reducing injuries and supporting mental health, but it's really designed to get us through this whole career. We all know in law enforcement what a challenge it is, how difficult it can be. And having retired in 2012, you know, I've often thought to myself, boy, what would I be thinking if I were a policeman now in 2020 with everything that's going on? And of course, here in Washington, D.C., we saw a lot of heavy protests. So the panelists today are going to help everyone watching understand what they did to submit. We're going to hear from a selection committee member and hear about how the panel works. And I think you'll be suitably impressed when you hear about their diligent deliberations. So if I may, let me introduce our panelists. The first panelist is Stacia Hilton. She is a 37-year veteran of law enforcement, beginning her career in the United States Marshals Service. She then rose through the ranks of the Marshals Service, taking on leadership roles. She was in training. She was their incident response commander. And in 2010, she was appointed as the director of the United States Marshals Service. She's also a fellow at the National Academy of Public Service. She's a recipient of the President's Distinguished Service Award. But most importantly, she is a selection committee member on the Destination Zero Selection Committee, and she has been with us since the beginning. So we have a great deal of continuity in our process, and I think that that's really important. Next is Chief Jeffrey Smythe of the Burlington, North Carolina Police Department. Chief Smythe started his law enforcement career in Arizona. He's been in law enforcement for 33 years. And in 2013, he became Chief of Police of the Burlington, North Carolina Police Department. He is a CALEA commissioner, and his agency won the 2017 National Officer Safety and Wellness Award for comprehensive safety. Our next panelist is Lieutenant Gerald Hallert from the Reno, Nevada Police Department. Lieutenant Hallert is a 13-year member of the Reno, Nevada Police Department, and he is the leader of their wellness team. Lieutenant Hallert, interestingly enough, was a teacher before he joined the Reno, Nevada Police Department, and I imagine he brought some of that academia and scholarship to his job in the Reno Police Department. Our last panelist, and certainly not least, is my good friend and co-worker, Larry Cecchettini. Larry is a retired captain from the Yolo County, California Sheriff's Office. He served for over 29 years with that agency. He was a graduate of the FBI's National Academy, and Larry was instrumental in getting that program. If you watched all of our previous sessions, you saw that one story on Yolo County and the great success they had. Larry's going to talk to us a little bit about that program. Larry was instrumental in making those tremendous strides in traffic safety. And of course, they won our very first Officer Traffic and Safety Wellness Award. Larry was so good at what he did and how he presents his facts and things, we brought him on board. So he is a member of the Memorial Fund, as am I, and we both work together on Destination Zero. And Larry will definitely be able to take you through the process of submitting for an award and be able to give everyone some pointers, as I suspect and hope all of the panelists will. I want to turn first and start with Stacia Hilton. And can you start us off by just kind of telling us about your experiences with the Destination Zero panel, some of the things you may remember in the number of years that you've been with the panel, and just kind of take us through your experience.
Sure, thanks, Nick. It's great to see and great to be here with all the other panelists. Always appreciate everything you guys are doing up there at the museum and especially with Destination Zero. So thanks for the opportunity to speak to everyone. So, I'll say that, we first started off and I think, it was going to be, get down for a couple of hours down there, have a bagel and, have some great dialogue about these different awards. And the prep work that came for it the first time, it was sizable information even the first time, but it has grown, each year. Sometimes the binder is getting unruly, for those of us that still like to print and read. I'm up to 2 binders now, great. But I appreciate the automation aspects that you guys have brought to the table. But, most of all, it was collegiate debates that occurred at the table, and I already knew I was in trouble. I prepped, came in. I had retired, so there's no staff. I was printing my own stuff and coming in, and then comes in Chief Menger, and he's got his book and he's got it tabbed, and I'm thinking, okay, we're nice to have staff again. Not true. Tom Menger had gone through every single detail, and as the debate opened, the 2 of us, as you'll recall, kind of back and forth across the table trying to justify and defend the ones that we had picked. Sheriff Fitzgerald was there. It was just one of those environments that you'd love to be in with you and John Matthews and everyone helped facilitating us and chasing down information because, there were some gaps the first time around. We were like, well, where did they start and how did they get here? Has this been going on for 20 years or this just happened last year? And so as everyone's trying to learn how to fill out these documents and, even as you guys as a group collectively kind of learn what to go back and ask for, you had done a lot of prep work ahead of time to fill in those gaps for us. and continue to do it throughout the day. But the deliberations were delivered in such a manner that even to this day, I still say some of the best meetings I sit in are down there at the museum with Destination Zero, because it's such a healthy debate and argument. I mean, sometimes we were really down in the throes of really defending, why we think the ones that we have selected are better than the other guys. But what we really work hard for, and I think this is important, is consensus. And that's really what a beautiful debate and deliberation is all about, is can we get to consensus? And in doing so, we've moved sometimes because, people see and pick up and have different opinions. We all have different experiences on the job. And the Marshal Service run a lot of task forces. We got the chiefs that are out, we got the sheriffs that are in the room. So we really have a lot of diversity in our thinking out there and what we think, is wellness, what we think safety is. So, that was really my first experience. So, I made sure that each time we kind of get to the table that we're well prepped, because we really have to kind of hit the ground running and start presenting and defending, who we think the recipients are, and until we collectively arrive at an agreement. And sometimes it's tough. It's I can't tell you how close these are. Sometimes it's just unbelievable. And I love the initiative.
Yeah, I appreciate you mentioning that and your deliberations, because for folks listening and attending, these people take this very seriously. And I should mention, she mentioned Sheriff Fitzgerald. We have representatives of almost every type of law enforcement that you could think of on the panel, from municipal to county to sheriff. So we really have a broad range of experience, as Stacia said. And she also mentioned some of the deliberations. Are there any that you remember that were particularly contentious that you could share with us?
Well, I don't know if I should do any naming, but I know that Menger and I were just like down in the throes at one point. I joke about how we had to park our weapons outside and kind of come in, but that non-lethals were allowed for the argument. But I love Tom. He always brings a great debate to the table. But I can remember really fighting, and it was just interesting to be on the panel today because you had sent us some questions ahead of time. Right. And two of the ones that I really wanted to call out was Reno, right, and North Carolina. I'm like, oh, wait, they're on the panelists. That will look like I'm just, doing it because they're here. But yeah, I was really glad to see some people repeat and put in, because sometimes it's just the limited number. The grant, we're thankful to the Department of Justice and the grant that you guys were able to obtain through them. But grants come with a lot of regulation, as everyone in state and law enforcement knows. And in those regulations, we're bound by only to be select a few. So sometimes we ask for, repeat because it's been so good.
Right. Yeah. And then we have had some close calls. And if I can, let me take it to Chief Smythe, because as Stacia mentioned, you guys put in 2016, Stacia, I'll name them. You had Burlington going up against one of the big dogs in law enforcement, and it was, I mean, heated isn't the right word, but there was a lot of.
I say heated. I say it was heated.
And I'll tell the story. One of one of the guys who was working for me at the time, Mike Keith, he really put himself out there, really just saying, well, wait a minute, you guys need to consider. I had to sort of just go, look, Mike, the committee's got to handle this. Let's not interject ourselves in that. But that's because it was very close. Chief Smythe, if you could, you guys put in again for the award and won in 2017. But one of the things about you and your submission that came back for 2017 is that you had made changes. So what you had submitted to us in 2016 wasn't what you sent to us in 2017. So you actually improved upon that. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you did to re-enter? And then also, if you would, talk to us a little bit about your philosophy as a chief with regard to officer safety and wellness. You might have to unmute, Chief.
Yeah, first time on a Zoom call, happens to everybody.
No, it's okay.
So yeah, it's my honor to be here. I'm humbled to be with this group and the prior group, and hundreds of folks on these calls sharing remarkable ideas. We were on a call setting this up last week, and I made a couple notes of things to do. I've already got a great note from earlier today, right? And I think that's the philosophy, Nick, right? It's that every day is a learning day, and as a police chief, my lens is, what can I do to make my cops safer today? And if I can answer that question and put that into place, then when I happen to discover that there's a valid award and I turn in a submittal, I feel like I'm going to rank high, right? And that's what happened in 2016. So Russell Henderson was working for me. He went to a conference. We didn't know the Valor Awards existed in 2016. And he comes back from a conference and says, hey, Chief, I think we can win this. Look at all the things. I made a list while I was sitting in class. These are all the things we've done. And so, we turned in that submittal. And then as we do, we're in a constant state of improvement. We came back in 2017, then with the additional things that were underway. I can proudly say we didn't implement anything to win a Valor Award, right? We implemented programs to make our cops safer. And then we happened to win a Valor Award. And it sits on the shelf right next to me. It's one of the proudest accomplishments of my career. When I leave here, I'm taking that with me to put on the next shelf and the next shelf to say, this is what's so great about policing, right?
Right.
And while I'm talking about it, I point to that during every single interview I do with new cops, right? We're all trying to recruit millennials and they want to know what's in it for me. And so I say, literally, I water and fertilize the grass on my side of the fence. So when you look for somewhere else to go, you're not going to find anybody with greener grass. And my proof is that in 2017, the BJA said Burlington was the best. You want to work in a place where the government says we're the best, where you can look around and see that we're the best. So that's a byproduct of winning a Valor Award. It's intangible, perhaps. So our experience, go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I was going to say, and that's one of the things that I mentioned early on, and I don't think we, in our earlier sessions, if folks are watching and got the chance to see all of those things, where, as I said, we got those nuggets, was you mentioned that to me before, that you really are looking to get longevity out of your employees. And that's one of the things that Destination Zero is also about, is to get us through from the academy all the way to retirement, and to also retain officers. I imagine, I'd love to know what resignations have been like in law enforcement, given all of this. But I think, to your point, if you water the grass on your side of the fence and you are doing everything you can to make it safer, I think that's incredibly powerful. And certainly I know that, having worked in law enforcement and been through a lot of chiefs, it is so refreshing to have a chief who, yeah, the award's great, but you're doing it for the right reason. You're saying, this is to make my guys safer, right? And it's going to help with everything and through retention.
Yeah, but I think that's consistent for virtually every chief that I've talked to that's won a Valor Award or submitted Valor Awards, right? Listened to them on the panel before. Their heart is in the right place every single day to keep their people safe, right? What's the next best thing that I can do to keep my people safe? And we're doing that all across the country. And it's incredibly successful, with the goal being Destination Zero, with the goal being below 100, right? All of those things are remarkable in and of themselves. And then we've got these other benefits. So if there's somebody out there that's on the fence that says, should I submit or not submit? Man, I'm telling you, submit. Because even if you don't win, it's a process of constant improvement that makes your agency better and stronger. In 2016, when we applied, I took the application and I published that to the organization, right? And we put it on a poster on the wall and we said, look at all the things we've done. You kind of reach around and pat yourself on the back a bit, right? But the organization sees we're doing good things. And that's a celebration in of itself, regardless of getting the award or not. So the accomplishment is in the work, and then there's a bonus if you win the award.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. And again, it's, the awards is the carrot, but that's not the whole idea. The real strength behind DZ is our resources that we can share with everyone. And as you'll hear me keep mentioning nuggets. Even if you go and look at one of our programs, you could still pull something great just out of one of those programs, a great idea, not just nuisance call bingo, but great ideas from agencies like mentorship, right? Getting mentors for officers. Great ideas like, I know when I was a police officer and I came out of the academy at graduation, they handed me an envelope, and in the envelope was my station assignment. Okay, here's a great idea that came out of one of our submittals that I think it was an award winner, but their idea was, hey, we're going to tell you where you're assigned as soon as you get into the academy, and you're going to start working there immediately, and get you to be getting some FTO time, some field training officer time with an FTO right from the jump. So there's not some big surprise with a district or precinct or whatever you may call it. You hit the street and you don't know anything. Now you've already got it. Again, just another great idea that comes out of Destination Zero. And if we don't submit and we don't share them, it doesn't benefit anybody. So holding this stuff in, doesn't help anybody. Let me now turn to Lieutenant Hallert. And Lieutenant Hallert, you guys were, as everyone just saw in the awards ceremony, you guys were winners of the 2020 Wellness Award for the National Officer Safety and Wellness Awards under Destination Zero. Take us through a little bit about your submittal process and what you guys are working on. You're the director, or not director, I'm sorry, you're the leader of your wellness team. Could you just tell us a little bit about the wellness team and then about what it meant for your agency to win this award?
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks again, Nick, and thank you to all the panelists. Kind of overwhelmed, obviously, only being a 13-year veteran, and I'm in here with a bunch of high-ranking individuals that have done a ton in their career. So
yeah, don't worry about it, man. Don't worry about it. It's okay.
Just really honored to be here, and thank you very much. Thank you to, like I said, the National Law Enforcement Museum. You guys do a great job. So I was placed in charge as far as a co-lead, myself and Officer Byron Craig, in 2009. So our chief at the time was Chief Steve Pitts, and he kind of really got our foundation going on our wellness team. So myself was actually one of my current sergeants, and Officer Craig, we were all combined in a group of 3 to create what he wanted to call was a wellness initiative committee. So we completed that committee. We did a bunch of stuff for the department, from revamping the gym using seizure funds and different monies, to getting business donations from our unions, from both our supervisory union and the officers unions, and really started looking at the health and wellness side as far as just physical fitness. We adopted some advanced testing where we started looking at some of the morbidity issues with cardiovascular issues, sleep deprivation, all the things that law enforcement deal with on a daily basis. So once we started working on that, Chief Pitts actually ends up retiring, and then Chief Soto takes over, and he really supports us. We don't have a traditional rank structure for our wellness team. We do have liaisons where we can go to deputy chiefs and commanders, but ultimately Sergeant Ayala retired, and Officer Craig and I took over both as officers, and we had direct line right to Chief Soto. So when we had ideas and we wanted to implement things, we didn't have to go through the chain of command structure, which you generally do, which really opened us up to create our program much faster than traditionally when it has to go up that chain of command. So Chief Soto would delegate us back down the chain, but from there we've been able to we have an embedded resource officer who's a police officer, but he actually went to school and became a therapist. We have our peer support team. I mean, we have as many things as you can think about. We have tuition reimbursement and post-certification for law enforcement for police ground defense, so Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and also for gym exercise stuff. So we actually created a post-lesson plan and had it certified through the Nevada State Post. So officers actually get post credit to keep their certifications every year by going to these classes and becoming safer officers. Like I said, we really just try to implement as much as we can. We have community partnerships with many different businesses and gyms in Reno, different places to eat that offer healthy meals and healthy options for officers that are on the street that don't have time to sit down and take an hour, so they can grab a quick bite that has good health benefits, and they're not putting bad stuff in their system. So we just, like I said, we got really lucky that we have such a great command staff that really supported this program from day one. Since 2009, when Chief Pitts, retired Chief Pitts started it, and then 2015 when Chief Soto came on, him and his executive staff have been extremely supportive, and it's been a great thing.
Yeah, and it's a remarkable program, and the embedded resource officer, I think, is something that's really new. I may not have used the right term, but the idea that there is a sole focus of an individual to address wellness issues is very innovative, and it's out of the box. Your agency, and I think when we come back to you, your agency has been at the forefront of a lot of these things. And you mentioned some public and private partnerships, and hopefully folks today heard what other agencies have done. Either it's through their EVOC training, they're on a speedway, or finding other public-private partnerships to help them, whether it be partnering with a university to do testing, to do studies, or even negotiating with insurance companies. Destination Zero has a whole lot of examples of what other agencies have done to provide better resources for their officers, but also to utilize those public-private partnerships, getting guys into gyms, getting them access, allowing them to get better nutrition, and to, you know, sort of discourage some of the bad behaviors that you might have heard about in the previous panels. So I'd like to go to my colleague, Larry Cecchettini, who he and I have a bad habit of going back and forth doing movie lines. And he knows more movie lines than anybody I know. Anyway, Larry, if you could, we already played the Yolo County video earlier in our traffic safety section. But one of the reasons I want to hear from you is if you could just sort of tell the story, but also remind us of the true metrics that you got through that program in terms of crash reduction and cost savings. Because I think as we get back, going back to our selection committee member and then talking to everybody again, we want to hear about what it is that really knocks it out of the park for a submission. So if you could just kind of walk us through YOLO's program and again, what the cost saving was as well as the crash reduction.
Well, it started in 2012. I went to a 3-day safe driving seminar. The sheriff said he wanted a command level person to go to this seminar in San Diego. Well, all I heard was 3 days in San Diego, so I volunteered for it. And it turned out to be a crash reduction program, and we were seeing videos of cops doing stupid things through their dash cameras, like killing themselves, killing other officers, killing members of the public, hitting children on bicycles. That's where I learned that the most preventable cause of officer death is slowing down and wearing your seatbelt. You got to get those crashes under control. Well, I knew my guys were speeding out there. I was a division commander at the time, but I didn't know how to make it stop. So when I got back to the office, I talked with one of our lieutenants and found out, like you heard from somebody else today, they could monitor their deputy speeds through their video cameras, through their watch guard cameras. So we would get a report once a month that would show any time a deputy exceeded 90 miles an hour. Well, when that happened, the deputy supervisor was assigned to find out what call was he on, was it justified, review the video to find out what was going on. To try to establish a baseline to see how bad things were, I checked with our county's risk manager. I also checked with some of our department statistics. Turned out we had been averaging one on-duty at-fault crash every month for 8 previous years. We were averaging 1.5 deputies going into the hospital every year. We were blowing through patrol cars. Spent over $1 million on liability, property damage, damage to our own vehicles, legal fees. So it was astronomical. Pardon me. So what we did is we just started holding the deputies accountable. Every time that the car came in with over 90 on it, we did the investigation. And if it turned out, there are some times where you can do 90 miles an hour without activating your lights and siren for tactical reasons, and we understand that, and that was forgivable. But if they didn't have a good reason for it, we'd start the progressive chain of discipline. As it turned out, to establish a baseline, in the previous year, before we started our program, we had 832 speed activations for no reason. So that's deputies going over 90 miles an hour on 832 occasions for no reason. One of them was 126 miles an hour, and the only reason for that was because the car wouldn't do 127, or he probably would have come in on that. So we started making it part of our culture, part of our training. We talked about this in roll call briefings. We talked about the crash statistics. We sent every deputy through training. We put together our own training program, as well as stuff we got from the crash reduction program, the videos and those kinds of things. We put posters up that we made ourselves and that we got through other agencies, and we hung them up throughout the office. I mean, you literally could not go to the bathroom or leave the office without seeing one of our traffic safety posters. So we didn't just provide training, we changed the culture. So we went from a crash a month on duty at fault to finally we got our first year without a crash. So people have been talking carrot and stick today. Okay, if you're going to ask your people to do something, you're going to hold them accountable, and you're going to hold them to discipline if they don't. You have to reward them if they do something good. So as soon as we went a year without a crash, we made these certificates from the department. They were framed, double matted, and had a department challenge coin in there. And as a division commander, I went to every briefing and gave every member of patrol their own certificate, presented it to them, shook their hands, and told them thanks for what they were doing. They were tremendously honored for that. Well, now 2 years rolls around, no crashes. Now nobody wants to be that guy who gets into the first crash.
Right.
So we ended up actually going 33 months without a crash, and we saved over $300,000 in crash-related costs, which we were able to spend on other areas of the department. And our county's risk manager loved us so much, and anytime we needed training or anything, no matter what it cost, they were more than willing to come up with the money. So it turned out to be a great program, but you have to get the buy-in from the deputies. You can't just sit up on the mountain with the stick or the whip and just, you got to talk with them about it. You got to get their buy-off on it. You got to, no concept ever did this. It was the deputies that bought in on the concepts and worked with us on this.
And we've heard several mention today changing the culture. We've heard you, I just heard you say that, and I heard Will Balling say that, and others talk about, particularly as it relates to traffic safety. So that's tremendous. Those are tremendous numbers you gave us, though. 33 months, was that what you said, without a crash? And then how much? 350,000 or 300?
It was over $300,000 crash.
$300,000 in savings, which means you get to buy, as you said, maybe nice new cars, right? Cops love nice new cars. So,
well, actually, the patrol cars were lasting a lot longer.
Right. So for me, being a former traffic safety lieutenant, and I had one of my very good friends and colleagues killed in the 9th Street Tunnel here in Washington, D.C., struck by an impaired driver driving the wrong way. It's something that I take personally, and I would like to see more traffic safety programs come through. But I'd like to go to Stacia now and ask you, what else would you, as a selection committee member, do you feel as though we need to see more of? And then, and not only that, what in the process, if we could, is difficult for you guys that perhaps you'd like to see, not maybe, well, I guess I would say change, but are there specific things that you would like to see more of?
Yeah, I think, I don't know if there's more specifics inside that, hasn't already been talked about. I mean, it's always good to kind of get the story, who had the thought and where did it grow from there? When did leadership get involved? Did leadership drive it? None of it really makes a difference. It's just you're getting the full picture and kind of get the whole story around it. And I think as far as categories go, our limitations, I mean, you guys did a great job expanding it a little bit already. I agree with you. It'd be nice if we had a little bit further breakdown for traffic, because there's so much safety around there that if we had a chance to take some of the great ideas and have a category for that, like we do with wellness and, some of that would be, really helpful. It's really hard to define. I just would encourage everyone to put in, and I think you guys adding the finalists so that we can get them up on the website, because again, they're very thought-provoking, is helpful. So I don't know, Nick, that I have a lot to really offer as far as, other things to see, other than it really helps to have the benchmarking, what the baseline was beforehand.
Right.
Challenges were that they were facing, how successful were they? Or, how are they feeling about the whole thing? Just a little bit more narrative around there is really helpful. Sometimes we just don't have that before and after picture. And that would really, I think, makes a difference when we're deliberating.
And you mentioned the wellness category, and that's important because, and maybe you will be able to talk to this a little bit, but one of the things that the committee has struggled with is the fact that when we get to the wellness category, we often end up with great programs in wellness. More agencies submit for wellness, and wellness is kind of the amorphous category. We've talked about, Lieutenant Hallard just mentioned sleep and mentioned nutrition and physical fitness. We could have a great physical fitness program submitted, and that'll go up against a mindfulness program under that category. And that can make it challenging for the committee as they, and back me up if I'm wrong, Stacia, tell me to be quiet, but it makes it difficult for them because it's almost like apples and oranges. And so we're hoping that we're going to be able to divide wellness into two separate categories so that we're able to extract some more of those good ideas that fall into that big category that is fitness, sleeping, sleep deprivation, nutrition, maybe there's a great program for mindfulness and resiliency that, that maybe deal with that one issue, but we have to kind of weigh them together.
Yeah, thank you for actually coming back to that point, because it's something that we've had a lot of discussions about in the room, on the sidebars, and then guys have broken out different meetings on that. And so I think it would be really good, whether it's physical fitness on one side and everything that goes along with physical fitness, and then it's the mindfulness, but somehow getting some differentiators in there. Again, until that happens, though, just encouraging everyone to put in there and why that was important for their department. They may say we had a well-established physical fitness, but what we needed to really do was work on the following, because, especially in today's world, COVID, we've heard a lot about that, the challenges that law enforcement's feeling, the defunded conversation. They might say, hey, we're going to be fluid in managing our departments and our agencies. So we moved over here this time because we have a great baseline, but they should say that we have a great baseline in physical fitness, and this is the piece that we wanted to improve on. So I think that that's, a really important part. And then the only thing, if I could, Nick, because I'm sure you're going to go to someone else, is I want to add this one piece.
Please do.
And I think, it's one of those things that I always appreciate, both you and John and Thomas and everyone sitting around saying, okay, we evolved the program and we see a lot of things now. So the bar keeps getting higher and higher, and differentiators, right? Because it's like business. It's like, how are we going to get those differentiators in there?
Right.
So, we're all used to it. When we put tourniquets, in my first year, we put the medical training out in place, got tourniquet. It was fairly brand new. We have live fire going and them getting their tourniquets on and training. And that was brand new. And it was a moment I'm really proud about installing that and having the saves and follow that. But that's normal, right? That's practically normal everywhere. So that now, people have to take it to the next, what are we looking for next in law enforcement for safety? Maybe it's off duty. Maybe it's something that, they've experienced a duty death because the cops were targets in the street. And so
great point about off duty. And I also am aware that in 2011, when you were the director of the Marshal Service, you had implemented, if I'm not mistaken, some new policies and tactics to ensure that you're able to protect your guys. And I think you said you had some saves with some of the things that you put in place. So you certainly understand safety tactics and all of that.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Yeah, we had 10 losses within months of coming on the job. 19 family members to pass a flag out to, or tearful faces that I carry a lifetime with me. As they hold on to your hand underneath that flag. It's really, really tough.
Yeah.
And so, as you said, all of us today, everyone involved with this, it's touched us in one way or another. But we just have to keep the fight on. And so I'm grateful for Destination Zero and everything that everybody keeps on doing. Yeah,
That's
great ideas coming. So. Thank you.
And again, so back to off duty, and I think that's an area that may be next on the list with regard to fatigue, and so many officers struggling to make ends meet or working that extra job. And I know in my agency, there are some guys who are the overtime kings, and I often wondered about their personal well-being just with regard to drowsy driving, fatigue, and all those things that could have negative consequences.
Think about that COVID tale of all the kids at home trying to keep kids in school at home, and the parents trying to tag team for work. I watch it with my family here, my nieces and my nephew. And so then you're going on your shift, you're going on a graveyard shift, but actually you had to help at home to get the kids schooled. And so that's a piece that, we've heard a lot about today, but, those are things that I think, are going to be unique in this year's entries. There might be some really good innovation that was done.
Yeah, let's hope so. Let's hope so. Chief Smythe, if I could come back to you, and if you would be able to just tell us your experience on Destination Zero when you won the award, and what happened? What was your experience coming to Washington, D.C.?
It was powerful and incredible, and sometimes timing lines up to either be your friend or not, maybe. So one of my prior agencies had a line of duty death in 2016. And so in 2017, I was able to connect with some of the folks from that agency. And that was amazing to be present, to buoy them up during that time. But just from an average perspective of being a Destination Zero winner and going to DC during police week is a phenomenal experience. So to rub elbows with the other award winners, to be present physically and not in a virtual environment for the presentation of the awards and the handshakes and the congratulations, and just hearing the stories and kind of the organic discussions are so wonderful. We learn like this, but we learn so much more when we're just, in a room with a group of professionals that care and spend time. And so it was a fantastic experience. My wife came with me. employee that wrote the award up, Russell, came as a line level employee. And so we had a wonderful few days there in DC. It was remarkable.
Great, great. Yeah, we try to provide that experience to our award winners. And, you know, Lieutenant Hallard, I'm sorry, you guys are doing it virtually. And I think we've told all of our 2020 award winners that our plan is, COVID permitting and what the future holds, but our plan is to have you guys out in May so that you will in fact walk the stage and formally receive your award and congratulations for the 2020 Wellness Award that you guys so richly deserved. We're wrapping down on time, unfortunately. I want to go to Larry for one last moment. If he could just give us the process, what it is you do when you want to submit. If you could just take us through that. So we've been sitting here talking about, hey, we want you guys to submit. If you could just kind of take us through the process.
Ordinarily, in normal years, you and I fly around the country to chiefs and sheriffs conferences and promote Destination Zero and the over 200 programs that are on destinationsero.org. Due to the pandemic this year, we were only able to go to one conference. So the way that we've been soliciting nominations for these awards is we've been getting in touch with chiefs and sheriffs associations throughout the country to push it out to their member agencies. It's gone out through Police One. Today is a tremendous opportunity for people to listen in on how they can do things. But the process is relatively streamlined now. You could go on to destinationsero.org, and in the upper right-hand corner, there will be a box that says submit your program. Now, that's not a full program submittal. That is just you answer some questions, check some boxes, and it comes into me or you, Nick, and then we add them to the roster, we call them, and we help them out with the program. Now, one of the simple ways to do your program is to first start off by doing some check boxes. Okay, yes, we have Narcan. Yes, we have level 3A rifle vests. We have whatever the case is. And then turn each of those bullet points into a paragraph. Now, photographs are becoming very popular in this submission. So if you have, like you saw today, somebody had the go bag, somebody had the tactical vest that had the extra pistol ammunition and rifle ammunition, extra tourniquets on it, those kinds of things. If you have something like that, take a photograph and embed it into the Word document. I mean, would you rather read a newspaper that had no photographs or one with photographs? So we encourage people to have photographs. And you can start the process, which is usually the hardest part for people, is start out by giving us a snapshot of your agency. What are your agency demographics? Where the Smithville Police Department is 120 square miles. We have this many officers, this many employees. The chief is X. If you've got a photograph of the group photo of the department, put that in there by all means. If not, just get a picture of the department. We had a Colorado agency last year submitted a photograph. It was a very beautiful photograph of one of their patrol cars in the snow with beautiful snow-capped mountains in the background. And they use that as their introductory photograph. So, you know, try to get creative. So after you've done your bullet points, and tell us if you have any success stories. Like Lynn County didn't tell you this morning, but because of their trauma kits and their tourniquets and their automatic external defibrillator devices, they are handing out life-saving awards quite frequently because their people have the training and they have the equipment. So if you have a success story, please, by all means, tell us about that. If you have any newspaper articles or anything that's gone to the media, by all means, include that. If you have this top-notch equipment, don't just tell us you have the equipment. Tell us how often you're training with it. Are you exceeding the training standards? You notice that some of the winners that spoke today, they're winners because they're exceeding the standards that are set by their state. Because they're really into training and they care about their individuals. Tell us how you got the equipment, how you were able to afford it. Pell City, Alabama, they raised funds for some officer safety equipment by doing, their city has a local Dancing with the Stars where city council members and the chief of police and all of that, they have a competition and they raised money that way for getting equipment. As Stacia said, statistics are extremely important. If you implemented a wellness program 2 years ago, go back and pull up your workers' comp and your sick leave stats from the 2 years prior to implementing the program and in the 2 years since you implemented the program. And I would almost guarantee you the numbers are going to go way down, because healthy employees are less likely to lose time due to injury or sick or what have you. So statistics, and Stacia, jump in if I'm going the wrong way here, but sometimes it can be the difference between a program and a winning program.
No, absolutely. It's a great point. And while we're defending ours, I like to be able to whip those statistics out when I'm going up against the guys sometimes, or they like to get them out on me. So I think it really helps all of us because, just get it in context. Because very hard, as we said earlier, to compare a small law enforcement organization at a county level up against LAPD. So we want to get that stuff in context, for the submission. So it really helps to have those statistics, because then we're measuring to your accomplishments.
No, that's it. And that's one of the most important things, I think. Did you want to add something, Larry?
It doesn't matter if you're a big metropolitan department or you're a small department. Pell City, Alabama, their police department has 38 cops. NYPD has one, and they have 35,000 cops. So it doesn't matter if you've got 38 or 35,000. It doesn't matter. What I will tell you is, once we get the information, it comes in off the website, and Nick or I get it, or one of the other members of the team, we're going to work with you on your submission for the rest until it's finally due. We're going to push it back and forth. You'll send it to us for email. We'll make some comments on it, tell you how we think you can get some extra points, make some recommended changes, or recommend some changes that you do that. So once you submit and you're serious about this, we will work with you, any agency, as long as they're willing to show that they're willing to put in the time and effort for a quality submission. We will work with you.
So that's great, and thank you, Larry. And Lieutenant Hallard, I'm sorry we're out of time, but one of the points I was going to make is that Reno PD, you mentioned since 2009, and I've seen Reno PD be at the forefront of wellness issues, from cardiac issues to diabetes screening and all of that. And hopefully we'll get another opportunity to hear more from you and your agency about that. But I didn't want to leave without mentioning the fact that, Reno is, even when I started in Destination Zero, one of the first agencies I heard about doing this wellness studies and partnering with universities and medical programs was Reno. So I want to thank all of my panelists. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And hopefully we've generated enough enthusiasm to get folks to submit. So thank you all very much.
And Nick, thank you. And I'd like to thank you all for attending today's Destination Zero Officer Safety and Wellness Conference. What a phenomenal day. Thank you to all of our speakers, law enforcement agencies, subject matter experts, and supporters of the National Law Enforcement Memorial Fund, who came together for this very important mission to make it safer for those who serve. I especially want to thank BJA, Verizon, and Goodyear for believing in the importance of our mission and for making it possible for us to deliver today's program. It is only with continued partnerships like theirs that we will be able to provide the necessary programs that will ultimately lead to Destination Zero. Programs like this, conferences, are integral to the mission, and we rely heavily on our own community of supporters to help serve the public. Today, our mission matters more than ever before. We need your support. Make a donation to the National Law Enforcement Memorial Museum by texting Programs 2020, that's with an S, to 4144. I'll say that again. Text Programs 2020 with no space to 4144. I'd like to congratulate our 2020 Destination Zero National Officer Safety and Wellness Award winners. And special thanks to Assistant Attorney General Katie Sullivan for joining us today. If you missed any portion of today's conference or would like to review any of the resources, please visit Destination Zero's website at destinationzero.org. Finally, if you would like to nominate your agency or know of an agency that has demonstrated success with officer safety and wellness, please use the nominations page on our Destination Zero website. We will be releasing our 2020 year-end officer fatality report on January 11th. As the leading authority in the line of duty deaths, we are not just focused on reporting the data. As a critical initiative launched in July of this year, our organization supplements that data with a deep dive into those numbers and what they tell us about how we can move closer to zero officer names being added to the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial. We are getting behind the solutions that are going to make it safer for those who serve. Please join us in January when we will take a deeper dive into officer safety and wellness in the categories of COVID-19, traffic, and firearms in conjunction with the release of our year-end officer fatality report. You can sign up to receive updates and announcements at lawmemorial.org. It was our honor to serve you, our law enforcement heroes. Thank you for being with us today. Stay safe and be well.